So today I'm joined by men's style editor Jemima Wilson, who's going to share a female perspective on men's style. So we were chatting off camera about style and key indicators of a well-dressed man, and it was interesting how we saw things slightly differently. So in this video we're going to look at Jemima's point of view, a more female point of view on what makes a well-dressed man and what you notice first. So what do you notice first?
Well, I've been working in menswear for a number of years now, and it's always very interesting to see things from a women's perspective in the menswear world, because there's certain things that I will notice about a man's style that most men may not even think about.
Probably, yes, probably very true.
I would say the first and key thing that most women will notice when they see a man is how does the overall look come across. If you particularly like wearing bright colours and print and pattern, and that really is your personality, perhaps if you're a creative type or very artistic, then I would say you can wear a bit of colour if that shows your personality. If you just want to come across as being elegant and stylish, I would say you shouldn't go overboard with colour, print, pattern, and certainly don't look like you're trying too hard. So a well put together look would be a complementary colour palette. I would recommend predominantly wearing neutrals.
Okay.
If you want to accessorise, and we will talk about accessories in more detail later on, choose one colour or one or two colours which you particularly like that also complement the neutral tones in your outfit. Just adding an accent colour or two that might be a little bit more interesting, but certainly the overall look should come across as classic,
So you
elegant.
you shouldn't notice any one thing immediately. Nothing should jump out at you.
On first impressions, nothing should really stand out other than a well put together ensemble. Part of that is how well the clothing fit. Because you can be wearing a very nice jacket, you could be wearing a very nice suit, but if it doesn't fit, it will really look like you don't know how to style yourself. And I think it also shows that you don't really have a good self-awareness if your clothes aren't well fitting.
So either too tight, too baggy, too long, too short.
Yeah, so let's take a jacket for example. If the jacket isn't fitting well on the shoulders, if it's not fitting well at the waist, certain jacket styles, for example, double-breasted, will be more roomy, but there should be certain parameters in which you look for clothing to fit. And if you're not sure yourself, you really should ask your tailor or the brand to help you to choose. Also with trousers, if the trousers are too long, it really does look like you haven't put much thought into finding
And how about
a suit or trousers that fit you, which kind of shows that you don't really care.
Too short?
Arguably, there are some trouser styles which are a bit shorter.
Yeah.
But you can obviously tell if they're too short for the style that they're meant to be. Okay. If you like to show a flash of your socks, which is a way of adding a little bit of colour to your outfit, then the trousers can be a little bit shorter, but in general, it's just as bad for the trousers to be too short as it is for them to be too long. It just doesn't give a very good overall impression. And the other thing to mention about fit is that it is not just about the way the clothes look, but when you're wearing very well-fitting clothing, it instantly makes you feel more confident. And not only more confident, but you're also more comfortable. So if you're aware that your jacket is too tight, you're going to be uncomfortable for the whole evening, and you're also going to be very self-conscious about it. Whereas if you're wearing clothes that fit you really well, it not only enhances your physique, making you more confident, but it also makes you enjoy whatever you're doing a lot more as well, because you're not constantly thinking about having to change certain things about what you're wearing.
So after fit, what's next on your list?
So now we start to focus more on the details of the outfit and the accessories. And one thing that I think is a barometer of taste and style is the watch you choose to wear.
Okay.
Now, this doesn't necessarily mean wearing a particularly expensive watch.
Because watches can be very expensive.
They can be, but I think what's more interesting about watches is the stories you can tell around them.
And the time.
And the time. If you're wearing a watch at all, is a good point, because these days some people don't even wear a watch, or they will wear an Apple Watch. Personally, if I see someone wearing an Apple Watch, I find it a little bit disappointing. I think it's the easy option. You never know, they might be a watch collector with some amazing watches at home. But I always think it's nice when you go out and about to wear a watch, because I think it does say quite a lot about you. I quite like seeing vintage watches, especially vintage watches that have a story behind them. So perhaps they've been passed down from other family members, or it might be a particular brand that someone has been following or a fan of, and there's a particularly rare piece that they wanted to acquire. Also, choosing an appropriate watch for daytime or evening is really important. I would definitely notice if someone was wearing a more sporty watch in the evening.
Like
with
James Bond does.
A jacket. Yeah.
Do you think that's particularly peculiar to you because of your links to the industry, particularly watches, or do you think most women would notice watches?
I think most women would notice watches, and overall I think if the watch was an interesting model, so there was something about the face or the dial that was interesting, I think even if they didn't know about watches, it would be a conversation starter and they would want to talk about it. So I think now we can discuss shoes, because it is still a crucial part of your outfit, and actually the shoes you wear can make or break your look.
So what are you looking for? What's a good shoe?
So I would say depends on formal or casual looks. If you're quite dressing for a more relaxed occasion, I would say the usual loafers, derby shoes, a high quality shoe in a dark shade, black, brown, usually is quite a safe bet.
And surely if they're well polished and cared for is important. I mean,
yeah, definitely. The condition of them should be well looked after. If you invest in a good pair of shoes, you should have a few good pairs of shoes, but if you invest in high quality shoes, they will last you, and also they will not age as quickly. I think that certainly in winter, wearing a boot can be a little bit less formal than an Oxford or a Derby shoe. Also a little bit more practical if you're battling the elements. But I think also the choice of black or brown really depends on what else you're wearing. So if you're wearing a more formal clothing in the black, navy, dark navy colour palette, I would normally suggest wearing black shoes and a black belt as well. If it's a bit more casual and you're maybe wearing tweeds or lighter coloured tailoring, I would suggest going with a dark brown shoe with a dark brown belt. So I always think that you can really tell a high quality shirt from a shirt that perhaps is less expensive. I think it's one of the pieces in your wardrobe that you should invest in, because I think you can just tell when a shirt is made from better quality fabric. I personally am a fan of a white shirt. I think it's incredibly versatile because you can either make it into a very formal look, or if you do want to look a bit more relaxed, it still looks very elegant, and it's always a classic.
My issue with the open neck look is it can often look like a guy's just taking his task to go to the pub after work.
So I think in order to avoid that, if you choose not to wear a tie, and I do think that actually not wearing a tie with a white shirt is better, because just a crisp, elegant white shirt, 2 buttons undone, does give a very refined look, even if you dress it down a bit. So I would say, in order to not look like you have just come straight from the office, your choice of pocket square then becomes very important, just to accessorise and add a little bit more detail so it doesn't look too much like you've just come from work. Chris, what do you think about pairing ties and pocket squares?
I've mentioned it a couple of times on previous videos. It certainly shouldn't, you certainly shouldn't match. That's a no-no here, and in the real world. I like complementary. I think, as we've shown this mannequin here, we like different textures, complementary colours. Yeah, it's an opportunity for a bit of playfulness, far more so than, say, a shirt or a tie or a pair of socks.
I think I wouldn't like to see a garish tie, or again a tie with particularly bright colours. I would say a subtle print on a tie is nice, especially if it's something a little bit interesting that says something about your personality. And then from that, if you extract 1 or 2 key accent colours for the pocket square, but keep the pocket square quite simple, that pulls it together really well.
So some really interesting points there, Jemima. I think our viewers will find that very interesting.
I've actually got one more point as well.
Share it.
And this could be the most important. Whenever you are dressing for an event, or even just going out for dinner, I think it's always better to be overdressed than underdressed. If I see a man who is perhaps a little bit overdressed for the occasion, I will only look at, in admiration, that he's made the effort and that he has wanted to elevate his dress. And I think that shows that someone takes pride and care in their appearance. If I was to meet someone and they were underdressed for an event or an occasion, it just makes me think that they haven't really put in any effort, and you then instantly start to feel like perhaps they don't care about the event or the occasion or the meeting. So I would say always make the effort, and it's definitely better to be overdressed than underdressed.
Well, I think we've got some really interesting points there. We look forward to receiving your comments, and don't forget to subscribe.